So, hello and welcome to our CiviCRM broadcast today. CiviCRM.Tea even. So, today's session is going to be about installing or deploying CiviCRM with Drupal 8. It's going to be an interesting session. It's the first time that me personally that I've tried a Drupal 8 composer install. Obviously we evaluate Drupal 8 and Civi on a regular basis, but for a while we haven't really looked at it. So this is the first time that me personally I'm trying it, and it's worth just giving a bit of a background to these videos. So the idea is that they're aimed at people who are not super technical. So you're kind of, or you're technical, but you've not really, or you're not really using Drupal 8. So the idea is that you might want to just get a brief insight into how you would go about deploying Civi on a Drupal 8 implementation. And it's worth noting we don't at the present have any clients that are Drupal 8 yet. But then again, we're a specialist Civi provider and not a kind of website building organisation. So we don't necessarily push the clients for any particular version of Drupal. So as I say, I'm going to try this now as a caveat. I know this doesn't work, and there's probably a few reasons that it's not working, but I don't know what they are. So what I wanted to do is just go through the steps and the instructions that are on CiviCRM.org to show you, following them, how you go about doing them, what kind of composer looks like. There's if you're more interested in the kind of nitty gritty of composer and how it goes about building the sites, then there's a couple of good videos about that are Drupal oriented stroke. I think Tim did one for Civi as well. So there's a good selection of content out there that you can have a look at about what Composer is. So the big difference between Drupal 7 implementations, Drupal 8 recommended implementations is Composer and using effectively a package management solution rather than a kind of download and tar style implementation. So traditionally we would in the Civi world you'd go to CiviCRM.org. Maybe I'll start showing my screen. So you'd normally you'd go to CiviCRM.org and you would download, and then you'd go get your version and put it where you want to put it. So WordPress or Drupal, I'd go and throw it there. The initial Drupal 8s, I think people were doing it the same way, trying to get their packages into the right places, and then you would upgrade in the same way. You'd manage it in using the same kind of process. But obviously with Composer, that's not how it works. So the idea is that you're using a kind of command line package manager, a bit like Yum or apt, to go and get the recommended versions, so that everything you run is kind of compatible and supposed to work together. So the idea is that it takes away a lot of the kind of manual tasks and the knowledge that you need to have about what order, what reliances there are on packages and projects, etc. So you don't need to know any of that. You just fire the Composer command and it will go and work all this stuff out, and it will pull everything that it needs to pull, and it was a similar process for upgrades and keeping things up to date and patched. So that's a kind of real brief explanation of what it is, because you'll hear it bandied about a lot, especially in if you're not used to it or you don't really understand it too much. Like I say, we can get super technical with stuff if we want to. If you wanted us to do a more technical session, then again, just suggest it on CiviCRM.TV or ideas.CiviCRM.TV, and we can we can plan a session that's far more technical. If it's if someone in the community is better suited to do it, we might reach out to them and have them host a session about that particular topic. If we felt that way, or alternatively we could do it ourselves. So right, without further ado, let's get going. So I'm using the same kind of sandbox. There's no Civi there, so I'm using the same kind of sandbox environment that I use for all the CiviCRM.Tea episodes. So I'm not going to go through the basics of checking that environment, because there's previous videos where I've done Drupal install, a WordPress install, where you can see what the checklist is and how I go about making sure the server's ready and has all the prerequisites for Civi. So in this video we're not going to cover that, or in this session we won't cover that. I'm not expecting this session to take a long time. Like I say, I know that I couldn't, using the standard instructions, I couldn't get through to a successful deployment. And my idea is in the next week or two I'll just try and see exactly what's going wrong there. Try and get the relevant instructions updated on the CiviCRM.org website, or put some hints and tips up there. There's some areas in there about if you hit problems and what you should try and do. But yeah, I've hit a few. I've worked through a couple, but I'm still stuck. So let's see what we're talking about anyway. So this is the page that I'm working through. So I'm doing a CiviCRM Drupal 8 install. I've got my Drupal 8 up and running here. I'm logged in as an admin, or as the admin. And I've reviewed the CiviCRM requirements, like I said, on this server with the exact same tool set I've got running on Drupal 7 and WordPress. So I'm not going to go through that checklist again. It's kind of repetition, and like I said, you feel free to have a look at previous videos about that. So let's have a read of this. So Drupal 8, typically administered composer. So dependency management, package management, call it what you want, but it's kind of automation of ensuring that things are in sync. So CiviCRM, in order to play nice with Composer, had to publish its code base in a way that Composer could pick it up and could deploy it with the relevant dependencies, etc. If you do not work regularly, then you should take a refresher. So I don't regularly work with Composer. I mean, I don't do technical stuff much these days, bar kind of architecture. So let's have a look. I've got Composer running, and I've got 1.10.15, and it was installed on the 13th. So I'm good. I have it. Don't need to download and install it. Once you have Composer, you have your Json and log files. So what is that talking about? So when you do your Composer, when you run Composer for the first time, it will create those two files in the root directory of wherever you did your initial run. So if I go to my where is the space? Alright, it's not liking that. So here's my directory where I did the install of Civi. Install of Drupal, and you can see my Composer JSON file, my Composer log file are created, and they are in effect what Composer is going to look at in terms of what's installed, what the requirements are, etc. So I'll just show you what it looks like. So there's a whole bunch of content in that file. Because I did a Drupal 8 install, that's what this Composer file is for, ideally, or really. So it's telling me what's in there. where some of the resources are for that project, what the repository is that is actually made up of this particular implementation, any requirements. So if there are dependencies or modules that I've said need to be in my composer builds as well, then they'll be there. And then there's kind of scaffolding and installer paths of where things go. So this is the kind of framework of where things go. But you shouldn't ever need to touch this file. You should be managing it through composer commands, and it will continue to build this kind of JSON file up. And I think the lock file is just about making sure that there aren't multiple processes, and making sure that everything is intact and there's no corruption of what's been run, installed, broken, etc. So let's go back to so we're all good. We've got a lock, we've got what else do we have? We have web and we have vendor. So we've got everything how I was expecting, and I just did a straight Drupal 8 install. I've tried a few, so I tried the example demo site that they have, which is about some cafe or something. I've tried that, and then I've tried a plain default Drupal 8. So so I've tried a few different installs. So I'm kind of happy that Drupal 8 is there. So if Composer is properly installed, then these example commands will add CiviCRM to Drupal 8. So like I said, this might be the shortest presentation that we've done to date, but let's see. So I think Composer's installed fine according to this, because there's the instructions up here, because I've got my version. I can see that the right files are in the right places, and more importantly, I've got Drupal running from a Composer install. So to me, Composer's running all right, and I'm just reiterating this stuff because I'm trying to make sure I haven't made some kind of silly error or got something wrong that, as soon as I read it, will be immediately obvious why it's not working. But I think I've got everything right. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and run these commands, but I'm running them. I'm going to run one or two more because there's a couple of dependencies that I don't have. So the first thing I need to do is install Git. So I don't have Git on my server, and it's a pure sandbox throwaway environment. So I'd normally trash it and build it on a regular basis. So some of the Composer stuff, some of the CiviCRM assets, they are reliant on Git being in place. So that's why I've got to run that. So I've run Git. Now I'm supposed to enable patching now. This is where it gets a bit confusing. So we're saying we've got to enable patching, but there's no patch manager. So when you read a little bit further down, it says more detail: enable patching. A handful of packages used by CiviCRM require extra patch files. This is possible with this plugin. However, you must opt in to enable it. So I think what that's trying to say is I've got to put it as a requirement into my Composer build in order for that particular package to work, right? So I've got a line in here which will bring in the package. So just to explain, the Composer is obviously firing the Composer command. What I'm saying is I require this package. So what is it and what do I need? And then for what's the minimum version? So again, I don't really want to be telling it an exact version, because I could downgrade everything as a result of that, because everything that's dependent on that package might also need to go downgraded. So I'm going to give it my minimum. So that tilde is saying the minimum base package version should be 1.5, but it could be upwards, minor releases. So it could be up 1.5, 1.6, 1.7. What it won't do is go up to major releases, and I think the guide on here kind of says stuff about that. Kind of gives a bit of a breakdown. Yeah, it talks a bit about it here. So it won't go up to like 6. So in Civi sense, it won't go up to 6, but it will try the latest 5.x version. So in the same here, I want this package. I want anything after 1.5, and it will be the latest stable that it will go and get. So let's do that. Yeah, I thought it it was all broken for a second. It's alright. So it's going to. So the first thing it does is it adds that. So I'll show you the JSON file afterwards, where you can see the impact of running that command. It's going to get it. It's going to update dependencies. So again, there shouldn't be any dependencies because it's not that kind of package. And it thinks they are done. So everything looks okay, and we can see that it installed 1.7. So even though I said the base package must be 1.5 at minimum of 1.5, it's found that 1.7 is the latest stable in that major release range, so in the 1 point range. So that's the one it's gone and got. So let's have a look at that file again now. So now I've got this extra require that I didn't used to have before. So I've got that in there as well. So that's kind of keeping that, keeping the JSON file to say, if I do an update, if I do anything, there's been an instruction to Composer to make sure that we don't drop below 1.5 on that particular package. And we know that it installed 1.7. So that's okay. So the next thing I'm supposed to do is turn on patching. So that's why I did the package manager first. Patch manager first, because I one of my theories on why my install isn't working is because I had things in the wrong order. So I'm trying to do them in the right order. So we've enabled patching now, and again, if I'm going to stop doing this, but I'll just show you again. If I just cat the file, then you can see now enable patching is set to true. So just for your peace of mind, when you first get to Composer and you're trying to do things, it's kind of interesting to see the impact of running the commands. Obviously, over time, that gets a bit boring, so you probably don't want to do that. Okay, so now I need to get CiviCRM's assets, and this is where things start getting interesting. So I think the assets works fine, and they're successfully pulled. So that's all pulled and no issue there. 111. So we're good there. So now I'm going to go get the core, and again I'm saying it's for Drupal 8 and I want 529 onwards. So let's see what Civi's done. This is where things start getting a little bit wonky, and my gut feeling is some of the issues here are the root cause of why my implementation or why my deployment fails, but I've got no hard evidence to prove that either way, because as you'll see when we get into it, the system's complaining about assets and the asset manager seems to run fine. So I've not had any serious dev time on or a dev resource on this yet to have a look at exactly what I'm doing wrong or what is not working, but that will be the next step. So we just let this run through. So this downloads everything, is complaining about not being able to apply patches. So this is the reason that I added the patch manager in and tried to make sure I do the commands in the right way, but they still don't apply. I don't know why. I'm in as root, so I've got permissions for everything, so it's nothing like that. But anyway, let's let this finish. So as you can see, it's got CiviCRM 5.3, 530 if you like, and it's making some suggestions about what I should potentially add in. As I've been through the checklist before, I'm not going to do anything, and my versions of PHP and everything should have everything that is recommended installed already. Alright, so these are a bit worrying, but when you read around the CiviCRM forums and the community, it's unclear as to whether these patches actually make any difference. Whenever I try to do anything, I don't want an error because it's just potential for why things aren't working. So my next task, before the next time we try this, is to make sure that I get rid of these patch errors and effectively end up with a clean install, or at least a cleaner install. Everything looked green though, so it's not really complaining that something didn't work, i.e. there's no dependent package that's broken, there's nothing that looks like it's wrong as a result of that, but that doesn't mean anything. So let's see what to do. So the next thing that I want to do, so what this doesn't talk about is what you do next. So it's kind of giving me all this stuff, and if I get pair packages, I can resolve those. Translations, I'm not going there yet because I'm really not there. Like, I don't even get to that point. So what I want to do is just run the installer. So I'm going to say I don't really care too much about anything. I just want to run the installer, and let's see if I can get Civi up. So in order to do that, I need when you install it on Drupal, Civi on Drupal, you've got two options, right? So one option is to run it, install Civi using the GUI. So effectively logging into Drupal. Let's just do that now. So I'm in Drupal now. So right now, just refresh the page. It doesn't look like there's any Civi there. If I go to extend, because I've pulled the composer packages down, Civi is there. So I could just tick those and hit the install, and Drupal will run the install, a bit like Drupal 7, etc. Back in the day, that's how you would do it before the Civi installs. Now the downside of that, and the reason we don't do that, is because it means your Civi is in the same database as your Drupal, unless you do some trickery before. But we tend to keep it separate. I also want some demo data in here, so I don't want to install it this way really. I want to do it the other way, which is through the Civi command. So like I say, it's there. I know it's there. It's kind of sitting there waiting to do something. So what we need to do before Civi can install, like I say, if I did it this way, all of the CiviCRM tables would go into the Drupal database. But I want mine separate. I don't want them together, because having them together means that anytime you want to back up, migrate, do anything kind of Civi related, you're tying in your Drupal database. So if you wanted to run an upgrade, you've got to potentially back up the entire Civi database as well as the Drupal database to migrate for any action. Ideally you want them separated. Having said that, that lots of people do have them together. It doesn't do any harm, but my preference is always to separate the two, so you've got clear divides between the two data sets, the CMS and the CRM. So if I want to do that, I need to use the Civi install method. So the Civi is the command line Civi. I don't know what the V stands for there, but so the CLI installer is here. So everything that I need to do to install it is kind of here. So I've got some commands from before. Actually, I've skipped a bit. I'm going to use the Civi installer, but before I do that, I need to create my database. So because I want the two separate, I need to log in and create my Civi database. So I've got a Drupal database, and I'm going to show you. I can show you that. Wrong password. Okay, so what we got? So I've got my Drupal 8 demo Drupal database. What I don't have is a Drupal 8 CbcRm database. I've got Drupal 7 CbcRm and a Drupal 7 Drupal, and then I've got my WordPress base database and the CiviCRM different one. So everything's set. So I need to create myself a D8 CbcRM.Tea one. So let me go ahead and do that. So we're going to create it with the whole UTF-8 MB4 stuff. So that's my creation of the database. And I need to. I'm going to create a new user for it as well. So all of this is in the CiviCRM docs, and you can see that. And again, we've got this before. That's interesting. Well, that's about. Okay, let's just need to do a bit of jiggery pokery on here. There's a bit of copy and paste issue going on. So I'm gonna still doing it. Alright, that's a bit weird. Okay, just bear with me a second. Let me get my. Alright, I'm going to do this a slightly different way. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm creating the user and I'm giving them access to be able to insert, update, delete. And again, we've covered this in previous videos, but I'm just reiterating it for the sake of making sure everybody's on the same page. So I am giving all of those permissions to the new database that we created to this CiviCRM user. What do I have? Oh. Okay, look. So I've created that user now. Very secure password. Doesn't matter. It's an internal thing anyway. It's a throwaway system, so it doesn't matter. And what else? Now I need to. I'm just going to give the other user, the Drupal user, permissions on the Civi database, and the Civi user permissions on the Drupal database, just to cover off all loops. Again, in a production deployment, I would do this very differently. I'm just doing it here partly because I want to make sure I'm not making any kind of silly mistake, but partly also just to show you if you follow the standard Civi instructions, you end up with similar commands to this. So let's close that. So I've created my database, and now I'm ready for the Civi installer. Now with the Civi installer, I can the CLI installer, I can do more than simply just install it into the same database, right? So some of the things that I want to do is give my base URL, what is the URL for the site, yeah, sorry, I was just thinking about something because I thought maybe I made a mistake there, but no. I've got my base URL there. I have got the separate database credentials. So where do I want my CiviCRM connecting to? I don't want it connecting to the Drupal database. I want it connecting to the separate CiviCRM database. What language files do I want to run stuff in? I'm going to leave it as defaults because I just want the sample data, and the sample data only works with VNUS anyway. So I'm going to leave that as defaults. So I do want the sample data again. It's another bit, and the verbose output. So I'm going to turn those flags on as well. So I want to see what this thing is telling me. Okay, so we know that. Right, permissions. So I might do this. Just again, I wouldn't do this in a I wouldn't do this in a normal environment. I'm just doing this because I'm trying to literally eliminate any cause for the issues we're about to see. So let's exit that. So what was that saying? Website's default. Right, so let's try that. Yeah, so we've given a full-blown read write execute on that directory. I'm also going to go one step further and just make sure that everything is owned by Apache. In the whole web directory. So I'm just going to make sure that that's all set and done. Picture my configuration. So we're all fine with this because, like I said, I've got Civi running on Drupal 7 and WordPress on the same server, so everything should be set correctly. So I've got my I've got my commands here. So that's what happens when you click on something loads of times. So I'm getting the Civi command package. I'm going to make it executable. I've put it into the bin path so it's available from anywhere. We've got a CD to the HTML directory. I'm already there, but I've got separate. Now I'm going to take some of this. So I've got my thing, and then okay, so what we got, so I've got do the core install, that's my base URL, da-demo, just making sure, again, trying to eliminate any possible calls for errors. That's my MySQL user, password, where is the database, the local host, and the port it's running on, and that is the database itself. And then I'm finally telling it I want you to load the dummy data, so the demo data, and I'm going to run it really verbose. I want to see if anything goes wrong. I want it to tell me what's going wrong. So let's run that. So I kind of grappled with this for a while, couldn't get it to pass the checks initially. But that turned out to be just the permissions weren't quite right on the database user, so it was crashing out on a few different issues. But yeah, but that looks a lot better. So it's telling me what my my config settings files stroke JSON composer file looks like there, what all the settings are. So everything looks okay. So I can see that the Drupal, the CMS DB is all set correctly. The Civi database is all correctly. The CMS path is set. Drupal, it knows that it's Drupal 8. All the other paths look correct. No extensions yet. The components that are turned on. So everything looks okay, right? So I'm expecting a pretty clean implementation or install here. So if I now come back to Drupal, we can see we have the CiviCRM menu. So, you know, it looks like success, right? I should make sure I haven't missed any steps, right? So I've run the command, review the permissions. So this is now getting into the actual CRM side of things. Drupal will keep the files directory and make it writable, but only when doing admin settings. So let's have a look and just, like I say, I'm just trying to eliminate possible causes for failure. So there's a files directory. It's got read-write access for the owners and for the group. So that all looks okay. The CiviCRM settings file is read write by root only. That's okay. Shouldn't need to change from this point onwards. So the files directory is fine. The settings, temp directory, and uploads. Let's just see what we've got in files. So that's CiviCRM directory. We want that owned by Apache really, so I'm just going to do that. Again, as I said, if this was a production server, I might be doing things a little bit differently. Not might be, I probably would be. Let's just see that looks okay. That looks okay. We're good there. All the stuff that I'm expecting is there. Okay, so everything looks okay now. What's it saying about on a brand new install these directories? So the uploads directory was there. File permission server directory. So I don't have a temp directory. I don't know where that's supposed to be, but I have an uploads. So I'm assuming everything looks okay. Maybe what I'll do, just for the sake of completeness, is go to the admin settings. See what it's complaining about. That's different to what I had before. Let's try the CiviCRM. Oh, sorry. The reason I'm laughing is I could not get this to work, and by some miracle, it is now working. So the only different thing that I did there, if you guys experience this when you're doing your setups, the only difference that I had to a non-working implementation or deployment to a working one was that I navigated to the configuration area within Drupal. That is the only difference. I didn't do anything else different at all. So, you know, this is a fresh Drupal. I didn't go in and do anything because it installed, so I didn't go in and set up any content. I didn't do anything else. I didn't need to, because all I was going to show on this presentation, this session, was how to install, or how to deploy CiviCRM in there. So, well, there you go. Miracles do happen. These are some of the errors that we had before. They're not current. They should be gone. I think we can go in there. Let's have a look. See. So if I search and see if I'm getting on. Yeah, it looks to be working, right? This is starting issues and stuff. It looks like the theme is not quite 100% correct. But in terms of functioning and having CiviCRM up and running, it does look like it's all there. Let's have a look at. Sorry if I've gone a bit quiet. I'm just a little bit flummoxed. That's all it was, and why it wasn't working. So, customize their screens. Okay, let's go back. Just want to see what themes we've got. 7, so that let's set that as default. Civi looks better. Well, it looks a bit better. So there you go. That has totally not been what I expected to do today. I was expecting to show you guys how it doesn't work, but it did work. So on that positive note, I'm not going to try and do any more. So the original plan was that we would do web form as well, maybe some theme changes, maybe a few other things. So I'm going to leave those suggestions for another day, another session. But like I say, if you're using, if you're doing your deployment of CiviCRM, then bar one or two minor changes to the instructions, it does work. The key thing is just bear in mind if you're doing it on a brand new Drupal, which you probably are, because that's my normal approach, is just set up a fresh, clean Drupal, install Civi onto it, so I can try out how it works and make sure that I'm not hitting issues that are particular to my Drupal installation or my setup or my configuration. I just want to try it on a clean one. So just bear in mind that you want to go to the settings or the configuration before you go ahead with that Drupal install, and then you'll be fine. It doesn't say that in here, but kind of hints at it. So it kind of hints at it in the directory side of things. So just for reference, for sake of reference, so I ran a couple more commands. I'll just paste them here so that you've got the full set of stuff that I ran. Ignore that. So let's make that a bit bigger. Oh. My words. What's it done? Probably don't want that one. Alright, so they're the commands that I actually ran. So it's a little bit different to what the instructions are. And the only bit different I did was this, because I wanted to see why those I'm still getting those patch errors. Again, I'm going to look at that in the next week or so and just see what that's about and why you see that, because it's a bit disconcerting to see patches not applied and CiviCRM documentation indicating that you do need them, but it still seems to work. So it's all a bit confusing why that is that way. So I'm gonna look at that and see if you actually need this or not. But other than that, these three are what's in the Drupal 8 instructions, the implementation instructions. Obviously, I didn't have Git, so I needed that. And like I said, there was a couple of warnings on mine about, well, not warnings, but suggestions on things that I could do. So again, for the next one, I'll have a look at how you resolve those and how you do that implementation of those components that it's suggesting you need. But yeah, I might not sound super excited, I never do really, but I am quite happy that it did work, because like literally I spent the last 24 hours scratching my head as to why this was not working and trying various different things to make it work. But it turned out all I need to do was navigate to a page. So so on that note, I need to walk my dog because he's been sitting inside watching me fighting with Drupal 8 and CiviCRM. Where are we? So so as we do regularly, we're doing the sessions every 2 weeks. If you have a suggestion or there's a particular area that you're interested in, please do post it on ideas.CiviCRM.TV. If you are interested in collaborating or even hosting a session or feel like covering a topic off, do reach out. This is a community channel. The idea is that we can we can get host speakers in. We can talk about different areas as long as there's community need for it. So please do reach out and stay engaged on ideas.CiviCRM.TV. And yeah, we'll see you next time. I think at the moment, what have we got in terms of the highest rated? Obviously, we've got this Drupal 8 deploying. We'll probably do 1 or 2 more sessions on it, like getting web form running, like theming, and maybe upgrading with Composer, stuff like that. There'll be more sessions on it. So because Drupal 8 will become the norm, or has probably become the norm for new implementations anyway. But the next session after that, the next highest voted thing looks like upgrading CiviCRM is number 1. So I'm not sure what it is about upgrading, but if there's any particular things that people want to see, then please do shout. I think some of the suggestors were hoping for a kind of silver bullet upgrade script, but I'm afraid no such thing exists. Every upgrade is slightly different and can have its own caveats. So we can walk through one and show you how to do them and what you might do if things go wrong, how we back up, how we retry, things like that. We can look at. But yeah, please do post on there, and any suggestions and any feedback on the videos will be much appreciated. So until next time, it's a bye from me.